Hello to everybody, and thanks a lot for joining. And this one is a report on the session on solubility and dissolution rate. And in this case, not an add-on to what was presented by Wendell, or by Jutta, or before by Frank, but this was on the overarching issue. And when we talk about solubility and dissolution rate, the slide you are currently not seeing would first show that we have different endpoints which we are actually looking at. We are looking at solubility, we are looking at dissolution rates, and we are looking at transformation. Transformation is not the focus of the discussion we have today. So thank you for starting this one as next slide. So with the next slide, this one was not the one I sent, but we will try to come across this problem.
Sorry, I was searched back in my emails for it. I'm very sorry about that. Does this come onto your slides, or shall I go back and look for the other one?
They come on, but it's not the right presentation. This one was the one we had yesterday.
Right. In that case, I will stop it again, and I will go back while you continue to talk and find where they are.
Or I may have sent you the wrong one, but I hope it was the correct one. It's called NanoHarmony Workshop Overarching.
I think I have found it now, so I am going to switch these on and see instead.
Very good. So I would continue.
Oh no, that's dissolution. I'm very sorry.
I've got one here with 8 slides in the dissolution rate over.
Correct. That's it.
Yeah. Okay, I'll share that, Tom.
Okay, that's great. Sorry about that. It seems to have got lost somewhere in the system.
No worries.
Give me a second.
So we have the overarching picture, which I would like to bring you across. And as said before, we have several test guidelines working on the topic of correct. This one is it. So click and click. So here that was one to click.
There you go.
So you have the solubility, dissolution rate, and transformation, where the transformation was not focused, but it is still something we have to consider when we talk about the behavior of the nanomaterial in liquids. So, and when we talk about solubility, dissolution rates, we do that in view of environmental fate and environmental toxicity, in view of human toxicity, behavior in biological fluids, and also for the physical chemical characterization analysis of materials, of nanomaterials. As was well shown by Wendell, we have different test methods which we talk about: batch reactor, flow-through cells, and sequential systems. Click, please. Which we try to describe a little bit in an easier picture. We have the batch reactors, the sequential batch, and the flow-through cells. And it's not that simple as shown here. You can have various flow regimes, you can have various batch systems. So overall, we have a quite high variability of test methods which somehow deal with the measurement of solubility and dissolution rate. Next picture. And we then have another situation coming into it, that we are not only using water, but that we are also using different test media, so solubility in and dissolution rate in. So overall, this is a mixture of information, and when we talk about it, it's important that we see that several people and several activities are going along this area of dissolution and solubility. And that was one point we wanted to stress. Next slide, please. So with this one, I already mentioned, we have and had a discussion by the OECD project led by Austria with Frank von der Kammer, another OECD project from Denmark led by Kjeld Alsop Jensen, and which Jutta Tenschert presented, and the OECD project from Italy, led by Italy, which Isabella De Angeli is coordinating from the research side. Along with that, we also have the picture with other OECD projects. Please click. So we have OECD projects where we have discussions during this session, during this workshop from the UK by Rachel Smith on how to detect materials in biological media. So certainly the solubility dissolution rate is there a topic. other on bioaccumulation or behavior in towards bioaccumulation, and one OECD project led by Spain with Maria Fernandez Cruz, and another one by the UK led by Richard Handy. And we have one which is certainly the toxicokinetics, where dissolution rate and solubility in biological fluids is quite important. That is the OECD project on toxicokinetics led by the Netherlands and Susan Becker. And there are other ongoing activities towards nanomaterials here as well. So one issue and one point we wanted to raise in this session is that we have this kind of overlapping issues, of overlapping interest, and not overlapping really, but somehow linked interest in the topic of solubility and dissolution rate. The next slide, please. So the aim of this session was slightly different maybe than if we are discussing a single test guideline development. This one, the aim of this session was to make all aware of each other's activity, what is scheduled, what is planned, and what type of testing materials or testing is being actually followed. We wanted to raise the awareness on problems and peculiarities, introduce the different approaches, which I mentioned before, seek really for some, no, please back. Seek for comments and facilitate international involvement, which was quite important, and introduce timelines for the interlaboratory comparison. Overall, certainly this is to facilitate the development of internationally agreed test guidelines. Next slide. So what were the results? Yes, we achieved the awareness. The results of tests depends on the test condition, certainly, and this is not only dependent on the nanomaterial, but also on the suspension media used on the test system chosen. We clearly want to stress that I have to remove one of the pictures I see of myself. The setups and results of for the different assessment areas do not have to be comparable, and they have to be actually different to be fit for their purpose. And this is one point we certainly have to raise here. So even though the system test up is similar, they are in specific points different and maybe not fully comparable. So that is important to consider and to keep in mind when we talk about dissolution rates and about solubility. And what is also important and mentioned already by Wendel in the previous session report, scientific advice on the possible use of data for a given purpose is also needed, because when you discuss the different setup systems, you also see what is important and what you have to consider for following assessment of the data for security or for other points of assessment. Next slide, please. Very easy recommendations to assess methods from other harmonization organization was mentioned, pharmaceutical methods and from fiber industry, which should be linked to or should be considered, or where we should have a look and how far this can be linked to and make comparable. We mentioned, and Wendel already mentioned that one, that some international people are joining already the interlaboratory comparison or round robins for the TG developments. That was one of these points, and also to make them aware of the other areas where this kind of testing and comparison will take place. And also to you now here, using this kind of session, we really seek for comments and recommendation to the specific development activities. And if you can give some comments here where it's important to look into the overarching issue, please comment and please send us those comments. Otherwise, very specific comments to the test guideline developments, you give please to the corresponding people mentioned already up front and towards the OECD projects which were mentioned before. With that, I think this was the last slide. Next slide. Yeah, it was the last slide. With that, I finish with the presentation on the results and of the discussions we had, overarching issue on